Hi, how are you?
Hello. I'm sorry. I kind of surprised you with that
You did. I think
start
I even
button. I kind of surprised myself even.
you're quick on the fingers today. So in case any of you are first joining us, welcome. We're glad you found us. I'm Melissa McLeod here at the Wool and the Floss in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, just outside Detroit, and along with my partner Megan at the Needlepoint Clubhouse in Kirkwood, Missouri, just outside St. Louis. Together, we make up the Pointing It Out podcast team, and generally every 2 weeks. I say generally because real life interferes now and then. Generally every 2 weeks, we drop a new episode that's all things needlepoint: designers, teachers, threads, canvases. I don't know what else we talk about. Books. We talk about lots of stuff, projects, challenges.
We do. And I'm actually sitting over here laughing because you're saying life happens. And to your right, do you see what you see right in the corner of your screen? A pillow that says tired as a mother.
Oh, behind me. Yeah. Our Kelly stitched that. And we are talking about threads today. So it's disappointing that there's nothing sparkly in here because today we're here to talk all about sparkle threads.
Did you say that's yours?
No, our Kelly does needlepoint, my Kelly uncle that works here. She stitched this and we finished it.
Even though both of us are tired as a mother, because we are both mothers, we're both dealing with life and family, etc. We are still here to talk about things, and we've put together kind of a fun topic, I think, this week. We have kind of started a deep dive, and I need to go back and actually maybe take some notes, but that's usually your job, on what thread groupings we've actually talked about. But we think that this is a new category of threads that we haven't talked about. So we are here today to talk about, as you mentioned, all things sparkle. So I got to tell a funny, quick little story. So when I first started needlepointing, I did belts, and in my world, mostly men wear belts. And I was like, there should be no sparkle on belts. And then I started moving into pillows because, as we all know, pillows are my favorite thing. And I'll never forget going into the Needlepoint Clubhouse, and Nancy Kinker, who actually just retired, was like, I think this pillow would be really great with some sparkle. And I was like, no, like she said a dirty word. And now I have a couple of customers who say that to me, and I just giggle because I have moved way past my rigid ways, and I've dived into the world of all the things that are available to us as stitchers. And I have used sparkle, and I have used, I think, all of the threads that we're going to talk about today.
And I feel like I have to have something sparkly in almost everything. Like very rarely people will hear me say, I actually don't think this canvas calls for any sparkle. And I kind of get people will hear me say that because I don't say it very often. But
Exactly. So I even have some stitchers who come in and say, oh, it's so wonderful to have all these different threads, because when I started stitching, all we had was, wool, all we had was cotton. And then I think right after that is when Doug Krynick came along, not too long after those kind of original kind of categories, and sort of changed the marketplace, as they called it, Balgère. And we're going to talk a little bit about Krynick today when we get into kind of our categories, but we did do just to kind of throw people back in the Wayback Machine. You interviewed Doug Krynick. How long ago was that?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I think it was about a year ago. I can't totally tell you. It was definitely still during, not too long after everything was really shut. So maybe a year and a half, but it was fascinating. So if you have not watched that episode, like I just thought he was so interesting, and what his parents did, and they're involved in theater productions and like so much more than needlepoint.
Game of Thrones. I mean, it's wild. Yeah. And as I'm looking at my kind of spread of sparkle threads, I will say Krynick and Rainbow Gallery are kind of the king and queens, or queens or kings, or however you want to call it, leaders, the royalty of the sparkle world. So the way we kind of broke this down is into categories, and Melissa put me in charge of this, so it's organized-ish, not nearly as organized as it would be if Melissa was in charge of it. But so here I am. So my very favorite, we call it the Workhorse. It's our #1 seller in the shop, and I don't know if you've had a chance to analyze your data now that you have a brand new system, but our #1 seller is Silk Lame. We carry both 18 count and petite, and silly me, I didn't grab petite. I should have. This also comes in what they call Silk Lame Plus, which is, I think, thicker, flatter. And
the LBs.
Yep. And then the Silk Lame for 13 count, which we don't carry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's what is the LB. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah. I thought that's maybe what you were saying. So petite, regular, 13 count, and plus are all the Silk Lames. And I'm sorry if you're hearing reverb. They are, we had water in our back room, and they are now regrading the entire back alley, and it is shaking the entire building. So I'm sorry, there's not much I can do about it.
It's all good.
Unfortunately, I don't have a production crew and microphones and, an equalizer and all the things. But so anyway, I'm calling the Silk Lame really the workhorse. And what I wanted to say about Silk Lame, and maybe you can help me through this, because I tried to find some good examples, but I find, so there's Silk Lame that's matte, and this is Melissa's favorite color, and I'm teasing her about that.
It's our most popular color in the shop.
This is what happens to be one of my very favorite colors, but I'm teasing Melissa because one day she called and she said, oh my God, I think we ordered, was it 200 cards or something?
We ordered, instead of 22 cards, we ordered 22 packs.
Which is times 5, which is a lot of.
I'm 6. Yeah. So we have a lot of that green. It's a good thing. At least it was a really great color.
It's a great color. But I just want to say something. So this is what I call matte. I find this one to have like a little less, I don't know. It somehow has like
mellower.
Say it again.
Mellow. I feel like it's mellower.
Mellower. So there are some mellower ones. There are some tone on tones. If you can see, this is a blue with blue in it. There are, and I guess this is really a tone on tone too. Sorry, I was trying to get my samples here together. There are what I call the iridescents, which I'm not sure if that guy will live very well in my camera, but the iridescent has like literally an iridescent filament. There's the multis. So you've got this, and there's a few other that have really multi-colored filaments.
I'm stitching with one of those that's like, they have one kind of for every like holiday, and there's a 4th of July one. I call it a 4th of July one. Maybe it's patriotic. Yep. And I'm stitching with it on a Melissa Shirley piece. I wish I had it with me because it's amazing.
It's fun. So that one I didn't actually grab. So there's Mardi Gras, holiday, and 4th of July. And those to me are like where
there's a Halloween one.
Oh, the Halloween too.
Because our Kellys use that a lot too.
So that one actually has different colored of silks, I think, spun. What I'm trying to say is this one actually has sort of a multicolor filament with one color of silk.
Got it.
So really what Silk Lame is just strands of silk and a filament together with it. I grabbed these two to illustrate the point, because from what I could kind of tell in the other light, these look like the same color of silk, but 2 different filaments. So, and then lastly, I call this the silvers, because there's like a blue with silver in it. There's a red with more of a silvery tone, but suffice it to say that if you're looking for a color of sparkle,
way to go.
Silk Lame probably has it. Am I right?
I have, and I love Kreinik. I will tell you, I have some people who say, I'm not going to stitch with a metallic because I didn't enjoy my first experience. And Silk Lame braid is a very different experience from
Did
Kreinik.
you grab the same color?
No, I didn't actually. This is 156, but it's close.
That would have been awesome.
Your version of the matte one. And this is Holly's beautiful Switzerland ornament from Kirk and Bradley. And the background is all sparkle, and it is really pretty. But if you, I think that I find that my customers are either Kreinik people or Silk Lame braid people. Silk Lame braid, because it is made up, I'm trying to get a good picture, made up of silk threads plus the metallic filament. It kind of can come unraveled. Like, I don't really have a problem with that, but some people are like, oh no, it came unraveled on me. It's not a problem for me. Whereas other people feel like, but it has a lot of malleability. Is that a word?
Yeah, I think that's a great word. Yes. It moves with you. Yeah.
And Kreinik's a little stiffer. So some people don't like the Kreinik. So if you've tried Kreinik and you didn't like it, try Silk Lame. If you've tried Silk Lame and you didn't like it, try Kreinik, because I feel like they're different experiences.
I completely agree. So I actually did throw, and when I say workhorse, I mean variety of colors, variety of uses, mostly 18 mesh, I would say, but I just mean the ones we sell over and over and over again. So the Silk Lame, the Kreinik number 12, And now notice this is a fatter spool, but Kreinik is now coming on all the fat spools, which is off-putting to some, but it is size 12. I promise you, I looked at the tag. Glisten is a Workhorse sparkle. So that means it's another thread that has a filament in it.
Can we
And
back up for 1 second?
yes.
Sorry, that's not, this is the Silk Lame braid. See on the top, it says 418 count. I think Megan and I are both in agreement that that's, yes, it's 418 count, but I almost exclusively use this on 13 and 18 both. Like I use it on 13 all day long. I personally think the Silk Lame braid that's planned for 13 is too heavy of a coverage for me. So I just want to say when it says 418 count and we send it to you with a 13 mesh project, don't think that we sent you the wrong thread. Like this is how it functions. So.
That's how I feel too. And the only exception I would say to, I think that rule is that if you're trying to totally cover up a really bright color with a really dark color of Silk Lame or vice versa, you might see a little of that, dandruff or whatever they call it, the little speckling of other color. But for the most part, I am 100% with you. Tone on tone, I use Silk Lame on 13 count mesh, no problem. It really is a tension issue. But so the Workhorse is Silk Lame, Glisten. Glisten happens to be, I call it the cold brother of Silk Lame. It's wool instead of silk. And Entice is again a similar, but it's rayon and polyester with sparkle. And then the Kreinik is just all metallic. There's nothing in it. And I think that's why people have a tough time with the malleability of, as you said, of Kreinik.
So I have this little sample up here. This is one of our little sleds. I did 4 of these. And there's a lot of sparkle in here. So the less shiny pieces, I feel like this light is a little harsh. Let me move that light a little bit. The less shiny pieces that are still shiny, like this gold down at the bottom, the gold in this checkered border, that's all Kreinik. And then see at the middle just really, really shines. So that is another metallic, which I think you're getting to, but I wanted to show you guys example of Kreinik is metallic and it's shiny, but it's not like woo in your face shiny. So
it's not the disco ball that we'll get to in a second. So of the Workhorses, well, sorry, I'm trying to move into my next category, but I'm not doing a great job of transition. So there are many of the threads we're going to talk about, so that also have a glow in the dark friend. So I just wanted to point that out. So these don't work any differently. They don't look any differently in the daylight. They just happen to glow in the dark. So Sparkle Rays has a glow in the dark, and I only carry the petite Sparkle Rays. There's regular and petite. There is a Neon Rays Plus, which we'll get to in a minute.
5 colors.
There are 5 colors of those, and they're kind of fun, and they're their own little disco. If you see them, they kind of have like a variegation, which is super fun. But it's the variegation, I think, that is what makes it sparkle. So you get a little bit of lavender and a little bit of fun white kind of fleck in there. And then Silk Lame. I know some people who use this Silk Lame glow in the dark as their white because they think it's whiter than the white. So what is it? O2 is the white.
And I think that's 300. So I was going to say, just there's nothing wrong with using it as a white, but if you're grabbing something really fast off the shelf, just watch your numbers, especially if you're halfway through a project. You want to stick with SLO2, not glow in the dark, or choose SL300. Is that the right number?
Yes.
For anything that you might want to glow in the dark, or where you say, I don't care, I just want it to be super white. So
exactly. And then the Kreinik glow in the darks are super fun. They're really bright. They're like the fluorescent friends of the Kreiniks. So so there's that. Do you have anything stitched in glow in the dark, Melissa?
Not here. Kreinik wise, I don't know if I'm going to muddy the waters here. So Kreinik has a number 8. So Kreinik has a lot of things. I'm not going to count all of them right now. For the most part, what we sell a lot of here is number 8, number 12, number 16. What that refers to is little tiny filaments. 8 of them make up the number 8, 12 make up the 12, and 16 make the 16. So as that number gets larger, your thread gets fatter. The other thing that they sell, that we sell a ton of, is the Kreinik 1/16th. And 1/16th comes with a peach label. And it's more of a ribbon shaped thread, which I feel like is a totally different category, but Kreinik has its own ribbon shaped thread.
Yes.
So,
And you actually are segueing me perfect into the next category, which I'm calling the ribbon threads.
Okay.
So
So I've got a
1/16
couple
is,
samples I'll show you when we get there.
and 1/16 is what I would call a ribbon thread. And I didn't happen to grab one, I don't think, in my parade of threads over here, but there you go. And so I have never officially measured, but do you know if Fireworks, Petite Silk Lame, Neon Rays Plus, and I'm gonna throw Frosty Rays into the mix, and I'll tell you why in a second, because it's flat-ish, you can make it flat, but
I
do
can tell you,
know if those,
I substitute Fireworks, Neon Rays, and 1/16 together all day long. We don't carry Petite Sparkle Rays, so if that's the same width as those other two in your hand, then yes, they're all four the same size.
I think they're about the same. It's just this guy is heavier. He's like denser. But I just wasn't sure. I think that these are the same, are this 1/16 ribbon, same size. But it appears to be when I stitch with them. How about that? So these ribbons, so these flat guys, including this guy, work really well on 13 count mesh because you can make sure they lay flat and they cover your space.
Right.
But they also, these guys, not as much of this guy and not as much this guy, work great basket weaving on 18 count mesh because these guys just crunch up together and they lay just fine in their little space, in their little spot. I had to bring this guy out because this is just a funky, this is the disco ball color. See that? This is number 25. He is like so fun and frolicky. And I think the point you were trying to make earlier on your sled is this disco ball, I have a feeling, is what's making up your background. Am I wrong?
So when we talked about this cute little checkered sled,
yeah,
the outer gold is not as shiny as the inner gold. And the outer green is not as shiny as the inner green. So the inner green is, sorry, this light is great until you try to show a thread and then it's not. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, it's fireworks.
So it just has a whole lot more wow factor to it. So that's what makes this middle pop because the gold, I think is one of your favorite golds that we're out of stock on right now.
15 or 14.
Yeah, we have one or the other in stock, but it wasn't the right one. So that's the middle are both fireworks. In the middle, if you can tell, there we go. Those are Scotch stitches. So ribbon threads look really nice in longer stitches because they lay nice and flat. In that same vein, I'm guessing this is 202 HL from Krynic because that's one of my favorites, those stars. So those are big, long laid stitches. And so those ribbon stitches kind of just, they look really great with longer stitches.
I do think though, and I am not a stickler on this, but I do think you really need either another needle or a laying tool to get those guys to lay because they just want to spin the flat stuff. You don't use a laying tool.
I do use a laying table for pliable silks, but see these fingernails, they come in really handy. So, but I don't like them to twist, but I'm able for the most part to control it with my fingers.
So let's agree on this. You do have to work to make them lay flat. Either with 100%. Your finger, with another needle, with a laying tool, however you do it. They don't just nicely lay. These guys want to wrap up and love each other. So yes.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say that there's one thread out there that is not what we're talking about today, patent leather, where you have to make sure it's laid on the back. You don't have to make sure this is laid on the back. As long as it's laid on the front, as long as it's flat on the front, you're fine. You don't care what happens.
It can twist behind. It doesn't make any difference as long as it's laying flat on the front. Totally agree with you. So these are what I'm calling the ribbons. This guy, again, I happen to love this. The reason why we carry these is because the colors are so cool. They're just different. I love this on 13. I think that the regular Sparkle Rays is too heavy for anything other than laying it flat and long stitches on 13 mesh. But I love this thread because it'll do both. It'll lay flat or it'll stitch in. It stitches in pretty nicely.
The other thing do I have a sample in front of me? I do it all day long and I don't think I pulled a sample. But one of my favorite things with those ribbon threads is you can, let's see if I can find an end that's showing enough. You can tap this end and pull one of the little strands and gather it yourself and ruche it, gather it, whichever word you want to use. And any of these ribbon threads work. And the best one, in my opinion, is Sparkle Race.
Oh, okay. I bet you that's right, because it almost appears that it's like the filament is woven in. And so then when you do that, so, but
Well,
you've
and it
also, again,
because it's denser, like you said, it has a little more body to it.
yes,
With some of the others, if you pull too
they just,
hard, you break it.
Yeah.
The sparkle rays you can be a little rougher with and it still works out okay. So
right, right. So you've kind of, again, I don't know, this wasn't even planned. You're doing a great job of getting me into my my
trying.
categories. So this is petite frosty rays. I couldn't really figure out whether he went into my kind of texture category or my ribbon category or because here's what I have to say about this. To Melissa's point, this is the most beautiful ruching tool ever. This filament sits right inside of this tube of nylon, and you just pull it, ruche it, and then you have your perfect little stitching guy. You just thread your needle and you tack him right in. I'm sorry, I wasn't in my camera. I'm not showing this very well. Sorry. But so it's like a little nylon that the filament is pulled through. Now we carry the petite frosty rays because I personally think that the regular is just too hefty. But
we only carry the regular. But I'll tell you something. I'm kind of a purist. I'm pretty particular. I have had a number of people come in and say, do you have petite frosty rays? And I say, no, we don't carry it. And I don't think there's a bad choice either way. It just, for a shop to carry both is a lot of shelf space for a very specialty thread.
Yes.
So I think our old owner had carried this before there was even a petite option.
Got it.
My understanding, and I wish I could remember exactly.
I know where you're going, but go ahead.
The outer like nylon part of this is the same exact thing.
It's flare.
The inside has a thicker metallic in the regular than in the petite. That said, I've had people who have been partway through a project come in, were desperate to finish it, and they've bought the regular and stitched with it right next to the petite in the same project, and it's looked fine, which is crazy to me because that kind of makes my heart skip a beat. I don't,
because you want it all to be the same. I agree with you, and I just happen to so I've talked about this before. I have like weakness in my hand. I hate pulling things that pull hard. It simply hurts my hand. So I don't love Pearl Cotton number 3 for that reason. I don't love stitching Planet Earth wool on 18 count for that reason. It looks beautiful and people do it every day, but and so I think that's why I prefer this, because it doesn't feel quite as hefty to me. But to your point, I think it looks exactly the same. It does the same thing. And oh, cool. Is your background in this?
This Holly stitch, Holly's getting a lot of love today. So this white background stitch this is the Frosty Rays right here, and then it's silken iron. It's giving it that slight glisten. This is on 13 mesh. And yeah, I just think it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So
it's beautiful. Sorry for my phone too. I don't even see it to turn it off. So sorry about that. So yeah, so this guy I think is almost in kind of a world of himself. It also occurred to me to grab the flare as its own sparkle, but it's not technically a metallic, so I didn't pull it, but I think it could probably be.
This is one of my favorite uses for flare. Do you Kelly stitch this one? Do you see whipped cream on the top? I do this for sea foam on like a lake piece or lake foam, or this is whipped cream, smoke. There's a lot of different things you can do with flare.
Yep.
And in this case, it's just a little gathered technique that you put on top. But I have a lot of people who say, oh, no, I won't stitch with flare. And you were very smart to remind me of what I tell all of my customers, and I'm sure you do the same thing. There's this handy dandy tool, this thread zap. This is a lifesaver with a lot of these metallic threads. This works really, really, really well on any, I guess it's a man-made thread.
Yeah.
Because what it does on this little tip, and you can see this picture better, there's like an extension that heats up and it literally melts the thread. And so instead of cutting your thread, like I would say, well, if you're going to use flare, cut it on either extreme angle, because otherwise, if you cut it bluntly, it runs just like pantyhose do. And that makes people crazy. You can also intentionally make it run. And it's a technique called tortured flare. And you can like kind of my technical term, gob it all up
Yep.
and tack it down on your canvas if you were making like smoke or something. But if
Yep.
you want your flare to not run, you use this thread zap, melt that end, and it'll just work much more nicely for you. So I use this a lot with flare. Like I was doing a stocking that had a ton of flare. So this was my best friend. Kelly just did a stitch along here with that Black Hat Society.
Oh, yeah.
And he was using number 4 Kreinik or number 4 Threadworks Kreinik. Can't remember. But she said with the number 4, it tends to come unraveled more than the other ones. So she was like living for this tool. So if you've experienced threads that shred like water and ice, which I don't think we're talking about in this episode, but as soon as I say threads that shred, water and ice immediately pops into my brain.
Yep.
Any thread that shreds, this is a really good tool. But again, it's melting it. So you want it to be, a polyester, a nylon, a man-made product. You wouldn't use that on silk lame braid because there's silk in it.
So, yes, but you brought me right into my next sparkle. I love you, Melissa. It's like you're reading my mind. So the next category, so I'm going to make sure I'm checking off my categories here because I think I've kind of bounced around unintentionally, but my next category was what I would call filaments. And I don't know if that, I always get concerned when I like broadly proclaim something because there are people out there like the Merediths of the world who have done like very serious research and needlework. I make up a lot of my own words and I just know that I know how to explain it, but I don't know if it's like what the professionals would call it. So I just have to put that disclaimer out there. But these I call filaments because the number 4 Kreinik and the number and just the accentuate, and they call it strong metallic filament. So I'm not totally wrong.
For sure. Accentuate is 100% filament.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but unless you're on like super dinky tiny holes of cross stitch, or I don't even know if like Congress cloth, this stuff just really can't live by itself. It could tack, it could blend, it could bead with it, I suppose, but you can't, it couldn't really live by itself, right?
Carol and Beth Gantz, Carol used to be part of Associated Talents, and now she's since retired. And Beth Gantz, they love to use Kreinik number 4 as beading thread.
And I can see why. It gives it a lot of
flow and it's strong and all sorts of good stuff. So, and I don't ever think to do that, but I should.
And I don't bead that much, but when I do, I just prefer beading thread. I think it's easier to thread, frankly, and maybe it's just because I'm lazy. But yeah, I can see why that would be this would be a fabulous beading thread. I just wanted to try to say, like, you can't basket weave with it. I mean, you'd need so many strands, and it wouldn't be worth it.
Like accentuate, generally, I will add it to like a Bella Lusso, where you want to basically turn your Bella Lusso into a glisten.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Or Burmalana would be a good example if you prefer having some acrylic with your wool and you want to make it sparkly. Yeah. So I am not going to proclaim that I'm the knower of all things of filaments. I just wanted to throw it out there as an option. I do think that some people.
Let me throw one more thing in there. You said
Yeah.
you wouldn't be drawn to number 4 Kreinik because of the threading the needle. You can try a size 28 tapestry needle. It would work.
Yes, and we do. That's true. Let's just call a spade a spade. I just don't really like beading.
We know this. I love it, but you know.
But I also think that if you are struggling to thread any of these things, thread magic is something that a lot of people like for anything that you're using to bead a beading needle or a very small needle when it's not easy, like it's not waxed like beading thread. I'm trying to think if there's any. I'm going to be honest. I have made it. So I will have, and you too. Are you at year 5 yet? So I hit year 5 on September ownership. And I made it a promise to myself to use every single type of thread we carried so that I understood what they were and how they, I don't think I've ever used the filament. That's
better get to it,
my
girlfriend.
one thing, shoot. So I don't have any great suggestions for these. I
And I don't have a sample to show you either because I don't use it
much. So anyway, I don't think there's much more to say about that unless you have anything more to add. I just thought it was important to mention that there was filament out there so that if you needed to add some sparkle to some things, that was an option. Couple more categories. One is textures. And like I said, I considered adding flare. I considered whether Frosty Rays should be part of this because it is a cool texture. But I'm just going to say like off the charts texture. How about that? Fuzzy stuff is everyone's fan. It's a fan favorite here. Everybody loves fuzzy stuff. Oh, look at that. Now, talk to me about how many, you're on 18 count mesh, I'm guessing on that. Did you use all fuzzy stuff, like 2 strands? Did you add it to something?
So I think I had a teacher tell me once, never put 2 strands of fuzzy stuff in a needle. Guess what? I have 2 strands of fuzzy stuff in the needle. So I wanted him to be fluffy and dimensional outside of the canvas. And so there is some teachers out there that will tell you to only use 1 strand in a needle. I use 2, sometimes 1, sometimes it just depends what I'm doing. So
yeah. And fuzzy stuff, I love Melissa's. Tell them. So I put this in the sparkle category because it has sparkle to it. Whoops. But there's a cousin here to fuzzy stuff who doesn't have sparkle.
It's a rainbow gallery thread. It is let's just make sure that I'm right. 60% polyamide, 40% viscose, and it has sparkle in it. And then I think you carry it both. We both carry Turnway Silk's silk eyelash, and it is much more expensive because it doesn't have the sparkle and it is 100% silk. So I call this the kind of like, actually, I say it in a positive way. I say silk eyelash is fuzzy stuff's rich cousin. I was trying to do it backwards, but that was just going to sound derogatory. And I love this thread, so I didn't want it to sound derogatory.
Oh, it's a great thread. I just think it's cute because it really does have the same density. It comes off the card the same way. It's just that this is sparkly and the other one's not. And the one's natural and one's man-made, to your point. So this cousin, the cousin to fuzzy stuff that needs a haircut is Arctic Rays.
But I didn't cut its hair. I love how sparkly it is here.
I do too. And so I can't see exactly, did you do long stitches? Did you actually do
long diagonal stitches? Because you really can't see the stitch in Arctic Rays, so don't overthink it. Just fill the space. And
it's thick. The base of this is a little thicker, kind of like if you've ever used Angora. I find Angora to be kind of a thick base that, and I'm sorry to digress, it's not a sparkle, but I'm just saying the thickness is present.
And in this one, I did encroaching Goblin. And I guess what my point is that maybe you were getting to that I just thought of is you don't want a basket weave with any fuzzy thread because all your fuzz ends up on the back. So what's the point in having used the fuzzy thread? So you want to do things with longer stitches. So I think this was a 3/1 encroaching Goblin. And I think these are just long diagonal stitches with the Arctic Rays. Yeah. And the other thing we use, to be honest, we don't sell Arctic Rays anymore because it's one of those things that it's hard to find the exact spot for. Now that we have more room, maybe we'll bring it back, but I order it for my finishers all the time.
We love particularly the orange and the black for Halloween finishing. Yeah. White is nice for some icy finishes, but yeah, love it.
I'm also going to throw something out here. This is a Raymond Crawford design and it is no longer available. So don't ask for the top hat snowman with the school spirit, which is too bad. So
cute.
Anytime I show something, it's not available. So
the last sparkle texture that I have thrown in here, and I didn't pick a very good color for the camera. This is kind of a weird color. I don't even know what it's called, but this is the Krynic Micro Chenille. And it doesn't work like these guys do really. It doesn't, I don't try any stitches at all with this. I would just couch it. But again, Melissa probably has a sample that she's going to go run.
But I'm gonna be a runner for 1 second.
Be a runner. But this comes in a few colors. As you all know, we are having some supply issues with Krynic is having some supply issues. So we haven't had our favorite colors in this for a while. But these look really nice on trees. They look really cute. What do you have there? Oh, you've got it in a little jar. Cute.
Silver, green, white, but the gold, of course, is the bomb. And
yeah, the gold is great. And I think that's been on back order.
Yeah, it looks so great as Christmas tree tinsel. It's just like the best.
It's very cool. Yes. So it is a sparkle. It is a texture and it is part of my category here, but it's just a little different in use than these guys.
Good job.
So let me see here. I think I've got 2 categories left, and those are sparkle for 13 count mesh, which is the first. So I think we already made a good point to mention that depending on your tension and the way you're using it and the stitch, etc., many of these threads will work for you on 13 count mesh. So fuzzy stuff would work with a couple strands. Arctic grays would work when you're doing long stitches. Silk lame, neon rays plus. I mean, you name it. The majority of these threads that we've shown will work
Everything
on
that we've
13 count
shown,
mesh.
I would use on both depending on how I was using it.
But the way I define a pure 13 count mesh, there's really only one, but there's 2 that
You're frozen on
probably-
me. I hope I'm not frozen. I don't know.
you're,
I'm not sure what's being recorded.
you look great still to me.
Oh, good. You were frozen to me.
Yeah. So what I was about to say is there are 2 threads that I would call only to be used on the larger size mesh. And then there are 2 that I only like on 13 count mesh, but I'm interested to hear what my friend over here has to say. So the 2 that I think are dedicated 13 count mesh sparkles are Stardust, which is a silk and ivory product. Sorry, I'm looking at the back door because
They'll tell you it works on both, but I 100% agree with you. I have used it in long stitches on 18, but I generally wouldn't.
Correct.
I did use it in the background on this pillow.
oh, love her.
So this is Nabucco, and I use the longer stitch in silk and ivory, and then the shorter middle stitch in silk and Stardust. So it just gives it kind of a subtle sparkle, which is what I wanted to do because I thought this was pretty conservative, but it just gave it a little oomph.
Needed a little jazzing. And then the other is the 16 count, 16 size 16 braid Krynic. Do you disagree? I just think these 2 are pretty heavy.
I barely ever use 16 Krynic. Like I will generally use 12 Krynic on 13 mesh things.
Yeah, personally, I always worry about loft. So if we're threading a 13 count canvas for a newer-ish stitcher who wants to have some sparkle, and we're going to call silk and ivory, and the Stardust doesn't come in the right sparkle, I'll grab a 16 count Krynic because I don't think you have to worry about your tension because this is going to stay on top of the canvas pretty well. It's not going to sink.
Yeah.
So that's that. I guess that's kind of where I fall on the 16 Krynic. But the other 2 threads that I prefer on 13 that will work on 18 are Snow, which I grabbed the classic white Snow, but I know you have a favorite color called Carbon. And
I do. I didn't pull that.
No?
What's interesting is, again, like they're labeling this, they say it's for 18 mesh. I did use it on my cute little snowman.
Oh yeah.
And this is 18 mesh, but in general, I would be drawn. And I think I used it here.
That's long stitches, isn't it? It looked like
it's over 2. I mean, it's not super long, but I think at the time I got it because what I love about Snow of all the white sparkles, it's probably the whitest.
Iridescent white. Yes.
And the Krynic 57, 60 and a number 8 and 12 we were out of for a really long time. So I'm like, well, this tag says it's good on 18. I'm going to give it a try. But in general, I like it better on 13 as well.
Same with Crystal Braid. And Crystal Braid has a very minimal number of colors. There's, I think, 9 of them or something, and we have them. But this is
the white is what's in the snowman. But again, he's on 18. So I must have mushed it in there somehow.
And the time that I used this is when I did the Practically Perfect Mary Poppins, what do they call it? English Nanny Cat for Raymond Crawford. And it's on the cherries. And I just really liked this. It has a bit of a copper cast. I don't know how else to explain it. But I just really, really liked the color. And honestly, I think I had a skein open. So I just used it because I didn't need that much. And so in general, I would say the ones that I don't like on 18 count are the ones where I'm going to do completely basket weave, all dense, all really dense threads. Because then the whole canvas just feels like, but
and let's talk about that for one brief second.
Mhm.
If you basket weave, especially with Krynic or any of these 100% metallics, please, please, please use a frame. And I'm normally not a frame police, but Man-made threads don't block. They don't block. So if you turn in a all metallic ornament to me and it's a trapezoid, we're going to be able to get it less trapezoidy, but we're not going to be able to get it square again. So
It's
just be cautious. If you're doing 100% metallic, make sure you're stitching in basket weave, not continental, and make sure you're using a frame. So
yeah, that's a good PSA. I thought you were going to go to what I was going to make my final plug, but that's plug number 1 for using metallics. But so back to this, these 4, so Snow and Crystal Braid are on the line. These 2 are the ones I really wouldn't try to use on 18 count mesh because I think you'll get frustrated. But if it's in a small area and that's all you got.
honestly, Stardust, I love Stardust. It only comes in like probably 20 colors. We have all of them. I love Stardust. It's not a great basket weave thread in general.
It's kind of springy, it's spongy or something.
Well, and the sparkle just doesn't show.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
you
right. That's
need
right.
to kind of use it in a longer stitch, although I used it in my Nobuko with just the over 1 because I want it to be super subtle.
Yes.
But if you want the sparkle to show, make sure to use it in an over 2 or over 3 thread situation.
Yes. One last category and then one last PSA, I would say, is where I'm at here. Last category I have is Overdyed sparkles. And we talked about these, I believe, when we talked about Overdyed threads. I think we threw these guys in, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave out Overdyed sparkles.
So we our favorites.
This thread, it has really edged out all other threads in being one of my very favorites. I don't know what it is about it. It softens somehow. It's just lovely. It's pre-cut. And when I say this thread, I mean the Threadworks Overdyed Krynic. And I've got both here. I've got an 8 and a 12. I don't know what it is, but I interchange these all the time. Like right. I'll use 12 or 8 on 18 count all the time. I probably go more with a 12 on 13, but I just don't worry about it so much when it comes to these for some silly reason. I don't know.
This isn't
the moose.
But look at his little bow. Like it just glimmers. So it's this. Sorry, I'm not holding that very well.
Love that color. It's the gold and red one, right?
Yep. And so there's his bow. So that's that.
So thread. Good. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other thread that is the only, and again, I would love for somebody to point out any other Overdyed sparkle that we are missing. But the other is this painter's shimmer, right? The stuff's awesome. I have a piece in for finishing that I can't wait to show with this thread. Oh, nice. Is that the Michigan Santa?
It is. And Colleen stitches. This is from the Meredith collection. And the top is 1 row of this painter shimmer in the color Matisse. And it's called painter shimmer because they're all named after painters, which I think is just super fun. And then there's also some beads in there, but it looks really amazing. I think I also used that. I know I did, as a matter of fact, in the background of the snowman. So.
Love it. I don't want to share what I used it on because it's going to be awesome when you see it finished. I'll show it. I'll show it when we maybe do another one of our updates on the challenge. Last PSA, and I think I've covered my agenda.
We've always got one.
You may have had one. Anyway, scissors. I have a sad announcement and a PSA. I don't know if you've heard, but Ginger is no longer making the 4-inch designer series scissors. And I am so devastated. Ginger, if you're watching, I will personally finance the whatever it needs to take to continue with the designer series 4-inch scissors because I have a collection. I love them. They're my favorite. I'm actually having a woodworker make me a stand for them. Sad, sad story. However, I know.
That's
COVID be damned, or whatever it is that made my designer series go away.
I did not know that. You can tell I was just like, ugh.
Sad, sad day. However, my PSA is this. These precious loves right here, my precious love designer, my son says that, my precious love, as he's teasing about the dog. Do not cut metallics with them. If you want to preserve the beauty and the dignity of the shear, use serrated scissors. And we've talked about this before. Melissa has a very strong opinion about a specific type of serrated scissors that she adores.
I can't get them right now. So yeah.
My only PSA is just simply use either really inexpensive or serrated scissors to preserve and love your beauties. I'm being dramatic, but when Debbie from Florida Paris told me that, I was like, no, because I was like, anyway, here is the very last year to my knowledge.
I think we've got a bunch of them too. So thank the Lord. Everyone rush out and snap them up.
Board them because these scissors are wonderful. And yeah,
I wonder
sorry.
if they just ran out of ideas. You know, like they've been doing it for so long. I probably have 15 years worth.
There's none that look like this. There's none that look, I mean, come on. I'm not listening to that. There are plenty of ideas. Where there are new needlepoint designs, there are new designer series handles ideas. And
So
we
I'm
have
gonna-
new needlepoint designs every day. So where there's a will, there's a way.
I'm going to challenge you to get the Ginger people on the podcast because they are my favorite scissors. Those Epilot scissors are like the golden basics. And yeah, you need to get Ginger on the podcast and
All right,
pull
Ginger.
them out.
I don't know who's going to have a line on the Ginger people, but where
They're
there's a will, there's a way. If you have a line on the Ginger institution, let me know. Anyway, I'm teasing, but I was super bummed. Anyway, life will go on. First world problems, as they say.
For sure.
So,
For sure.
but I think that ends our sparkle thread extravaganza, unless you have any other tips, tidbits, tricks,
showed
ideas.
off all my samples. I had something with neon rays, but I think I showed the rest. So
And
yeah.
the one thing I will mention, and I mentioned this to Melissa that I was worried that I might get called out for, this is not every single sparkle thread that exists in the world. These are what Melissa and I pretty much carry. These are what I would say are very highly used in the industry. These are, I mean, there's something called Jewels out there from Gone Stitching. There are a multitude of other, I think it's called Jewels. Did I say that right? Is it Jewels? Anyway, sorry, I may be saying the wrong
Yeah,
thing.
you know, Jules is the one that Vineyard Silk used to make. The Gone Stitching one is called Twinkle. It came to me.
Thank you, good job. There used to be, Planet Earth used to have Opal. So Rainbow Gallery has Treasure Braid and Coronet Braid and
Sure. There's lots and lots more
any
choices.
various and sundry. So I don't want you to say, wait a second, you didn't name my very favorite thread. In fact, Kelly Clark loves Sparkle Braid. I like it too. We just can't carry them all. So, these are the ones that we just, I guess, see most often in stitch guides, see teachers most often using them. They're here, they're there. So anyway, I would love for someone to write in the comments if there's a thread out there that we did not mention that they love, that they
Yeah.
think we were grossly overlooking. So,
Well, and I'm going to have some new space here to fill the walls. So yeah, I'd love to.
ooh, crowdsourcing new thread ideas. I like it.
There
So,
you go. Good.
all right, girl. Well, this has
Thank
been
you.
fun as per usual.
I love that you organized us today. It's a little role reversal. And it was kind of fun for me just to ride the wave.
Well,
So-
I may have organized the threads, but you organized the samples. So it takes two to tango. It takes a team. So
Well, and if you have joined us for the first time today and put up with us for this long, please be sure to hit subscribe. That will help when we've dropped a new episode, and it will help other stitchers find us. And anytime you have some ideas of people you would like to see us highlight on the podcast or some topic ideas, just pop them in the comments. I will be honest, I'm not sure Megan and I make a point to read the comments daily, but we do read the comments eventually within a week or two, I would say. It's a pretty safe bet. So yeah.
I think that's fair. Unfortunately, our own businesses require a lot of zhuzhing when it comes to communication and layers of communication, DMs and emails and phone calls, etc. But yes, we will ping us, even if it's pinged on our own Instagram accounts, which is The Wool and the Floss and STL Needlepoint. So have a great day. Have a great night. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back again soon.
Okay. Chat soon. Bye.